A sleek dark car suddenly pulled up beside her. Before she could react or even step back, the car swung open and two men quickly grabbed her. Lara barely had time to shout before they shoved her into the car and slammed the door shut. Panicked, Lara tried to scream for help. Once upon a time, in the lively and bustling city of Lagos, there lived a kind-hearted widow named Abiodun. Abiodun had once been married to a man named Remy, who was not only incredibly wealthy, but also one of the best architects in the city. Remy was truly skilled, crafting beautiful buildings that towered over the city, and he was well loved for his creativity. Sadly though, he passed away unexpectedly, leaving Abiodun and her three young children, Lara, Tola and Shegun. Lara, being the eldest, often helped her mother around the house. When Remy died, his family came and took away everything he owned, leaving Abiodun and her children with nothing but memories. They found themselves without a home, struggling to make ends meet in the streets of Lagos, a city full of life but also full of challenges. Determined not to let her children suffer from hunger and despair, Abiodun used the small amount of money she managed to keep to start a new venture. With hope and determination, she began to fry and sell akara, a popular and delicious Nigerian bean cake. She set up a little stand on the side of the crowded streets, using her warmth and the enticing smell of her frying to draw in passersby. Each day, from the crack of dawn, Abiodun would be at her stand frying akara with a smile, despite the hardships she faced. Her other children were still very little, but Lara usually helped her. She would stand by her mother, inviting passersby with a beautiful smile to come and patronize her mother. Abiodun's akara was so incredibly delicious that it became the talk of the entire neighborhood. Every night, as the moon rose high and the stars twinkled brightly in the sky, people in her community would eagerly anticipate the morning, dreaming of the moment they could savor another bite of her scrumptious akara. The aroma of her cooking filled the streets each dawn, drawing lines of customers who couldn't wait to start their day with her tasty treats. As time went on, Abiodun's little akara stand began to do really well. The smile on her face grew bigger each day as more people came to enjoy her food. With the money she earned, she was finally able to save up enough to send her children back to school. Although she couldn't afford the fees for a private school, she found a government school with affordable fees where Lara, Tola and Shegun could continue their education. The children were thrilled to be back in school, learning new things every day and making friends. Life seemed to be looking up for Abiodun and her family. They had found a rhythm to their days, filled with school, laughter and a bustling akara stand. However, their happiness was suddenly shattered one fateful day. Abiodun was on her way back from the market, where she had gone to buy fresh supplies for her stand, when a terrible accident occurred. It happened so quickly and tragically that she died instantly at the spot. The news of her death was a tremendous blow to her children. They were heartbroken and in disbelief. Ever since their father had passed away, their relatives had turned their backs on them, leaving them isolated. Abiodun had been their rock, their protector, and their sole provider. Now, with her sudden departure, Lara, Tola, and Segun felt utterly alone in the world. They wept inconsolably, lost without the love and guidance of their mother. The community too felt the weight of the loss, mourning the kind woman who had brought so much joy and warmth to their lives with her delicious akara. After the burial of their beloved mother, life took a harsh turn for Lara and her younger siblings. They found themselves in a relentless struggle, with barely any food to fill their bellies. Days would pass where the only thing they felt was a gnawing ache of hunger. At 16, Lara felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Each night, as she watched her brother and sister crawl into bed with empty stomachs, her heart shattered into pieces. She felt helpless and alone, with nobody around to offer a helping hand or even a comforting word. One particular tough evening, their small quiet house was filled with the sounds of her siblings' cry. They were hungry, more so than usual, and there wasn't even a single drop of food to be found at home. As Lara heard their cries, tears began to stream down her face too. She couldn't just sit back and watch her family suffer. She knew she had to take action. She couldn't let despair win. Filled with determination and also facing a huge hurdle, Lara made a bold decision. She would leave school and start making and selling akara, just like her mother had done. It was a job she knew well, having watched and helped her mother since she was little. She believed this was the way to bring home some stability and food back into their lives. However, there was one enormous problem. Lara had no money to start the business. She had no capital to buy ingredients needed to make the akara. No beans, no oil, no firewood. The challenge seemed insurmountable, but Lara was resolute. She knew she had to find a way to overcome this obstacle, not just for her own sake, but for her siblings who depended so entirely on her. In the neighborhood where Lara and her siblings lived, there was a family friend just across the street known to everyone as Uncle Kunle. He was always cheerful and had a big infectious laugh that could fill the room. Whenever Lara's mom used to sell akara, Uncle Kunle was one of their best customers. He didn't just buy from them. He always stayed a bit to joke around, making Lara and her siblings laugh with his funny stories and silly antics. Because of this, Lara thought of Uncle Kunle as kind and trustworthy. So, when things got really tough after her mother's passing, she believed Uncle Kunle might be someone who could help them out. With nowhere else to turn and her siblings' hungry faces in her mind, Lara decided to ask him for help. She gathered all her courage and went across the street to talk to him. Lara explained everything. They had no food. She was thinking of dropping out of school to start the akara business, but she didn't have the money to start. She hoped Uncle Kunle would understand and offer some support, just as he had always seemed so friendly and caring. However, the response she received from Uncle Kunle was nothing like she had expected. After she poured out her worries and plan, Uncle Kunle's face changed. The warm smile he usually wore twisted into a wicked grin. Then, he spoke words that shattered Lara's trust and broke her heart. "Lara," he called out to her, I've always had my eyes on you, and you know you are so beautiful. Look, I can give you anything you want. You don't even need to fry akara. I can take care of you and your siblings, as long as you are willing to share this your sweet thing with me. He smiled, trying to touch Lara, who shifted back immediately. These words were cruel and shocking, far removed from the kind of man she thought he was. Lara left his house, feeling betrayed and more alone than ever, realizing that the person she hoped would be their savior was not who she thought he was at all. She walked until she found a quiet, secluded spot under a sprawling tree, where she sat down, her heart heavy with sorrow. Overwhelmed by the difficulties life had thrown at her and her siblings, she cried her eyes out, her tears soaking the dry earth below. The thought of her siblings suffering from hunger was so much to bear, and in her heart she sent up silent prayers, hoping desperately that none of them would succumb to starvation. As she sat there, her mind swelling with worry and despair, a flicker of an idea slowly began to form. Determined to find a way to provide for her siblings, she decided she would go door to door in her neighborhood, offering to help with any household chores, washing clothes, cleaning, or even fetching water. Anything that could earn even a small amount of money would be a step towards feeding her family. With her resolve firming, Lara dried her tears and set off immediately to try her plan. After several attempts, her persistence paid off. She found a kind-hearted woman who needed help cleaning her house. The woman, seeing the determination and the hardship in Lara's eyes, decided to give her a chance. Lara worked tirelessly, pouring all her energy into doing the best job she could. Touched by Lara's efforts and the obvious need she was in, the woman paid her generously once the work was done. Overjoyed and grateful, Lara thanked her profusely. This money meant she could buy food for her and her siblings for the first time in days. With a light heart and a song on her lips, Lara started her journey back home, excited to share the good news with her siblings. However, her happiness was abruptly cut short as she approached her house. There, in a distressing scene, was Iyaruka, their landlady, angrily tossing their meager belongings onto the street. Her siblings stood by, crying and pleading with the landlady to stop. The sight was a painful stab to Lara's heart. "Your rent has expired and your mother is dead. How do you intend to pay back?" Iyaruka bellowed, her face contorted in anger, showing no signs of sympathy or willingness to compromise. Desperate, Lara approached, begging and pleading with all her might, hoping to soften the lady's heart. She tried to explain their situation, to make Iyaruka see how hard they were trying to survive and keep the house, but it was in vain. Iyaruka's ears were closed to their pleas. One by one, their possessions were thrown out, leaving them with nothing but the clothes they were wearing and the few coins Lara had just earned. As their life on the sidewalk unfolded, Lara held her siblings close, trying to shield them from the harsh reality of their plight. Lara and her siblings trudged along the bustling streets, their belongings clutched tightly in their arms, without any clear idea of where they were headed. The world seemed vast and unfriendly, and with each step their hope of finding a place to rest grew dimmer. After wandering for what felt like hours, they stumbled upon an uncompleted building. Its walls were bare, and the windows were missing, but it offered some shelter from the outside world. Lara cautiously peered inside to make sure it was empty. Seeing no one, she signaled to her siblings and they quietly slipped inside. They settled down in a corner of the dusty floor, feeling tired. With no money left for rent, this desolate building was their only refuge. Lara could see the toll the day had taken on her siblings. Their faces were drawn and pale from hunger and exhaustion. Knowing she had to do something, she gathered the last bit of their money and ventured out to find some food and water. She returned with a modest meal, and although she was starving, she ate only a little, insisting that her siblings eat the rest. As she watched them devour the food, a mixture of relief and sorrow washed over her. They hadn't eaten properly in days, and though this meal was small, it was more than they had hoped for. Tears rolled down Lara's cheeks as she prayed silently that she would find more work the next day. As night fell, they used some clothes to cover the gaping window, trying to keep the chilly air at bay. The building was far from comfortable. The ground was hard, and the night sounds of the city filtered through the walls. Yet, despite the discomfort, Lara and her siblings huddled together, grateful for the shelter it provided. It wasn't a home by any measure, but it was a place where they could stay safe for the night, away from the dangers of the streets. They closed their eyes, clinging to each other, and Lara whispered hopeful words to her siblings, promising that tomorrow will bring a new opportunity. The next morning, as the sun rose and painted the sky with streaks of pink and orange, Lara left the uncompleted building that had become their makeshift home. She warned her siblings not to come out of the house, determined to find any kind of work that could help her and her siblings survive. Fortunate enough, she managed to find some menial jobs around the neighborhood. With a fierce resolve, she did everything, from sweeping floors to washing clothes for people. Over time, Lara managed to save just enough money to start her own small akara business. Starting the business wasn't easy. Business was slow at first, and many days were tough, but Lara worked tirelessly. Her mother had been known for her delicious akara, and now Lara was following in her footsteps, using the recipes her mother had taught her. Even though the money was tight, they finally had regular food to eat. Lara, just like her mother, was incredibly hardworking. She was determined to provide a better life for her siblings. Her commitment and dedication meant that she was able to send them back to school. She stayed focused on her akara stand, frying each batch with care, hoping each day would bring a little more business. People in the neighborhood began to notice the young girl at the akara stand. They were impressed by her skills and often remarked that her akara tasted just as good as her mother's. Despite her hard work and the love she poured into her cooking, Lara faced challenges that went beyond financial hardship. Her simple clothes and the heavy responsibilities she shouldered made her stand out among her peers. Some of the local children, who noticed her worn-out attire and constant presence at the akara stand, started calling her Lara the poor akara girl. They would mock her with laughter and cruel words as she passed by. It was painful for Lara, but she never let it deter her. The mockery of her peers was a small concern compared to the well-being of her siblings. Buying new clothes and looking stylish was a list of her worries when there were more pressing needs to be met. Lara was willing to sacrifice her own desires to ensure her siblings had food and education. Each day, after packing up her stand, Lara and her siblings would return to the uncompleted building they now called home. Though they still couldn't afford to rent a proper house, the makeshift shelter provided them a place to stay together. Lara would often sit outside, looking up at the stars, feeling a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. Despite the hardship, she was thankful for the strength to keep going and the chance to keep her family together. As the years passed, Lara's akara stand in the bustling streets of Lagos began to gain fame. It wasn't just the delicious taste of the akara that drew people from all over the city, but also the incredible story of the young girl who had given up her childhood to ensure her siblings could have a better life. Her dedication and resilience won the hearts of many, and Lara became a beloved figure in the community. One sunny morning, as Lara was busy frying akara at her stand, a flashy car pulled up beside her. The car was sleek and looked very expensive, the kind that was rarely seen in this part of the city. A man stepped out, and he was strikingly handsome, dressed in clothes that spoke of wealth and taste. He had just returned to Nigeria after being abroad for many years and started his business. He had been craving the authentic taste of homemade akara, but had not got the time to step out to get it. As he drove through the streets that morning, two things captured his attention: the irresistible aroma of freshly fried akara wafting through the air, and the sight of a beautiful young woman skillfully managing the akara stand. Intrigued, he approached Lara's stand. He bought some akara, and Lara served him with a warm, welcoming smile that made his heart skip a beat. Her kindness and the homely touch she gave her cooking impressed him deeply. After he tasted her akara, he was utterly captivated. It was unlike anything he had ever eaten. Crispy on the outside, soft and flavorful on the inside. It reminded him of his childhood and brought a rush of nostalgia. He knew that he was just stuck. From that day on, he found himself drawn to Lara's akara stand every morning. He couldn't resist the delicious food and the chance to see Lara's radiant smile. Each visit became the highlight of his day as he looked forward to their brief exchanges and the exceptional akara that Lara made. Jidenna was his name. He was a young man from a wealthy and influential family in the bustling city of Lagos, known as the Okafor family. He had an air of charm and confidence that came from growing up amidst affluence. Yet, despite his privileged background, he felt a deep connection to Lara, a beautiful, soft-spoken and incredibly hard-working girl who sold akara in his streets. Drawn by her warm smile and diligent nature, Jidenna found himself increasingly fascinated by Lara. Her beauty was matched by her spirit and dedication, and he felt compelled to learn more about her. Conveniently, his house wasn't too far from where Lara's akara stand was located. One Saturday, which was his day off from work, Jidenna decided to spend his morning at Lara's shop. He sat quietly, observing her as she busily served her customers with joy and enthusiasm. Watching her made him genuinely happy. Her kindness and the cheerful way she interacted with her customers warmed his heart. As the day wound down and Lara finished her sales, Jidena noticed the signs of fatigue on her face. He offered to drive her home, wanting to ensure she got back safely without having to walk. Initially, Lara hesitated. Her past experiences, especially the unsettling encounter with Uncle Kunle, had taught her to be wary of trusting men too quickly. Moreover, she was embarrassed about the possibility of someone discovering where she and her siblings lived, an unfinished building they had made their home. Despite her fears, Jidena's kind persistence eventually convinced her. Lara had managed to make the building somewhat livable by fixing a window and a door, striving to create a comfortable and secure place for her siblings. Her priority had always been their education and well-being, sacrificing her own chances for a better life to ensure they had theirs. With mixed feelings, Lara finally agreed, and Jidena, with her direction, drove her home. When they arrived at the uncompleted building, he was taken aback by the stark contrast between her vibrant personality at the stall and the harsh reality of her living conditions. "Is this where you live?" he asked, the shock clear in his voice. Lara's response was quiet and tinged with sadness. "We can't afford a good house," she replied, her voice quivering slightly as tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing her living situation and hearing her reply, Jidena was deeply moved. He couldn't believe that the cheerful, lively girl he saw every day faced such struggles. This revelation made him even more determined to understand her better. As they talked more, Lara gradually opened up about her life. She shared the painful story of losing her parents, dropping out of school and taking on the role of parents for her siblings. Jidena listened intently, feeling a profound respect for her courage and selflessness. Lara's strength and resilience in the face of such adversity struck him deeply. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, a truly selfless individual who had sacrificed so much for the love of her family. His admiration for her grew with every word she spoke, and he felt an overwhelming desire to help and protect her and her siblings in any way he could. As Jidena drove home that evening, his mind was filled with thoughts of Lara. The image of her gentle smile mixed with the sadness in her eyes haunted him. He couldn't stop thinking about the tough life she was leading, all alone with the heavy burden of caring for her siblings. The quiet strength she showed was admirable, but the unfairness of her situation tugged at his heart. That night, as he lay in bed, sleep eluded him. The room was dark and quiet, but his mind was busy with concern for Lara. He kept picturing and returning to that unfinished building, trying to make a safe and warm place for her siblings out of so little. He thought about her sacrifices, her lost childhood, and the dreams she set aside to provide for her family. Feeling a deep need to do something to help, Jidena tossed and turned, his heart growing heavier with each passing hour. As the night wore on, he made a firm decision. He resolved that he would do whatever it took to bring some relief and happiness to Lara's life. He wanted to see her smile, truly and freely, without the shadows of worry and fatigue. From that moment, Jidena was determined to find ways to support Lara and her siblings, to lighten her load and maybe even restore some of her lost dreams. This thought gave him a purpose, and though it was a small comfort, it was enough to help him set his mind on what he needed to do next. One of the things Jidena knew he needed to do urgently was to find a better and safer place for Lara and her siblings to live. The uncompleted building they were calling home was no place for children, and he was determined to change that. One evening, after a long day at work, Jidena decided it was time to take action. He drove to where Lara and her siblings were staying, his car filled with nervous excitement and the surprise he had planned. Lara was understandably anxious as she gathered her siblings. She tried to ask Jidena where they were going, but he only smiled and told her to wait for the surprise. They drove through the bustling streets of Lagos, turning down familiar roads, and then onto a street they had never seen before. Eventually, they pulled into a compound that was calm and peaceful, a stark contrast to the noisy city around them. In the middle of the compound sat a beautiful bungalow, its walls freshly painted and a small garden blooming with flowers at the front. Jidena turned to Lara with a big proud smile and handed her a set of keys. "This house now belongs to you and your siblings," he announced, his voice filled with warmth. He handed the papers to the properties, making it official. Lara was so overwhelmed by this incredible act of kindness that she fell on her knees, tears streaming down her face. She had only known Jidena for a short time, and yet he was changing their lives in ways she never dared to dream. Her siblings rushed to her side, their own eyes brimming with tears, not from sadness, but from a profound gratitude. They joined her in thanking Jidena, who helped Lara to her feet. Looking into her eyes, he made a heartfelt promise. "I will always be here for you and your siblings. I will do everything I can to make you happy." His words were a soothing balm, and in that moment, Lara felt a weight lift from her shoulders, knowing they had someone who cared deeply for their well-being. Things really started looking up for Lara and her siblings, all thanks to Jidena's kindness and generosity. He made sure they had everything they needed, providing not just a home but also warmth and stability. Jidena had fallen deeply in love with Lara and was committed to doing whatever he could to make her happy. Every evening, after a long day, Jidena would take Lara out. They would find a quiet place to sit and chat, sharing stories and laughter under the starlit sky. These moments, together, brought them closer, and Jidena hadn't felt this way about anyone in a very long time. Despite the differences in their backgrounds, he was sure he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Lara's presence brought him a sense of peace and completeness, and her smile lit up his days. Jidena was also supportive of Lara's dreams. She had confided in him her wish to return to school, and he was eager to help make that a reality. "It is never too late to begin," he would assure her. Lara, for her part, had grown to love Jidena deeply. Initially, she had been wary, wondering why someone of Jidena's stature would be interested in a former roadside akara seller like her. But as time passed, she saw the goodness in his heart and realized that his love for her was sincere, not minding her poor beginnings. As the relationship grew more serious, Jidena decided it was time for Lara to meet his parents. Excited but nervous, Lara hoped for acceptance, but braced herself for any outcome. The evening did not go as Lara had hoped. During dinner, Mrs. Okafor, Jidena's mother, made her disapproval abundantly clear. She scrutinized Lara throughout the meal, and upon learning about Lara's background as a roadside akara seller who had dropped out of school, she openly rejected the idea of joining their family. Despite Jidena's attempts to explain Lara's situation and his plans to support her dreams, his mother remained unmoved, dismissively calling Lara trash from the gutters of Lagos. Lara was deeply hurt by Mrs. Okafor's harsh words. She had always felt that perhaps Jidena deserved someone from his own social circle, someone who matched his social standing. The painful encounter only reinforced her doubts about her place in Jidena's world. Tears streamed down Lara's face as Jidena drove her home. He was dismayed but resolute. He knew his mother could be tough, but he was prepared to fight for their relationship. He reassured Lara, holding her hand tightly, promising that he would talk to his father. In his heart, he was prepared to fight for the woman he loved, and if his parents couldn't accept her, then they would have to be prepared to disown him. He assured Lara that everything would be alright, hoping his parents would eventually see the wonderful person Lara was and accept her into their family. When Jidena returned home after the difficult dinner with Lara, the atmosphere was charged with tension. As soon as he stepped inside, his mother unleashed her fury. "Jidena, you can't disgrace our family like this," she exclaimed. "I thought you had senses, but now I see. What do you think people will say about us? What would I tell my friends? That my billionaire son is getting married to an akara seller from the gutters of Lagos? The gods forbid, my son. I won't allow you to drag our name through the mud." But Jidena, trying to keep his composure, responded gently, "Mother, she doesn't need to be anybody special. I have everything we need, and I can help her achieve all her dreams. What does she need money exactly for? I truly love her." "Will you shut up?" Mrs. Okafor thundered. "What do you know about love? Just last week, Chief Adesoya's son got married to the daughter of a prime minister. You were there. Didn't you see how grand the occasion was and the caliber of people who attended? I will never accept that girl as a daughter-in-law. Not now and not ever." With those harsh words, she stormed out of the living room, leaving a stunned and hurt Jidena standing alone. This confrontation was even tougher than he had imagined, but his resolve was firm. He knew what he felt for Lara was real and deep, and he was prepared to stand by her, no matter how difficult his mother made it. Jidena knew that the path ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to fight for his love and for the future he envisioned with Lara. The days that followed the confrontation with his mother were incredibly tough, but Jidena remained steadfast by Lara's side. He was determined to make her happy, supporting her decision to stop selling akara and focus on her education instead. Lara was attending extra classes, working hard to catch up and continue her studies, fueled by Jidena's encouragement and support. One evening, after a long day at work, Jidena came home to an unexpected sight. His mother was smiling broadly, looking happier than she had in weeks. Since their heated arguments, they had barely spoken to each other, merely exchanging the briefest of greetings. Jidena was immediately suspicious of her sudden change in demeanor. His suspicions seemed justified a moment later when his mother quickly disappeared into the guest room and re-emerged with a stunningly beautiful woman beside her. The woman was undeniably attractive, but Jidena's heart sank as he guessed his mother's intentions. "Jide, meet Cassie, and Cassie, meet Jide, my son." His mother introduced them cheerily. Cassie extended her hand with a friendly smile, but Jidena, feeling a mix of irritation and betrayal, barely acknowledged her. Turning to his mother, he asked pointedly, "So, mother, is she here to see me?" His voice was thick with anger. If it's what I'm thinking, I'm not interested, and I don't want her." With that, he stormed off to his room. But his mother was quick on his heels. "Listen to me, Jide," she pleaded as she followed him. "That girl is a lawyer, and she's schooled in the States. Her father is a minister of finance. How dare you embarrass me like this?" Jidena, standing firm at his bedroom door, responded with a fierce determination. "Mother, I have found the woman I love, and she is all I want. I don't care about who you think is good for me. Please, go and attend to your guest." He then shut the door in his mother's face, sitting on his bed, overwhelmed with anger and frustration. Meanwhile, Cassie, who had quietly observed the exchange, felt deeply embarrassed and quickly made her decision to leave. She could see that Jidena was handsome and wealthy, but she knew all too well that marrying a man who did not love her was not something she was willing to do. With a quiet dignity, she excused herself and left the house, leaving behind a family caught in the midst of a tumultuous struggle. Mrs. Okafor was deeply humiliated by her son's outright defiance. Her husband, Chief Okafor, had advised her to let Jide choose his own life partner, emphasizing that love should guide such decisions rather than social status. However, Mrs. Okafor was stubbornly fixated on maintaining their family's image and insisted that Jidena marry someone from their elite circle. "I won't allow him embarrass us," she would often declare, fuming over her son's choices. Chief Okafor, on the other hand, chose to stand by his son. He saw the genuine happiness Jidena felt with Lara and promised to support whatever decision Jidena made. Despite this, Mrs. Okafor was determined to do whatever it took to prevent the union between Jidena and Lara the akara seller. One sunny afternoon, as Lara was walking home from her classes, feeling good about the progress she was making, a sleek dark car suddenly pulled up beside her. Before she could react or even step back, the car swung open and two men quickly grabbed her. Lara barely had time to shout before they shoved her into the car and slammed the door shut. Panicked, Lara tried to scream for help, but her voice was muffled by the speed of the car as it zoomed away. In a desperate attempt to attract attention, she continued to yell, but the men quickly pulled out guns, pointing them at her to keep her quiet. In that terrifying moment, Lara realized she had been kidnapped. Her heart raced with fear as she wondered who was behind this and whether she would ever see Jidena or her siblings again. The realization that her life was in great danger overwhelmed her as the car sped further away from everything familiar. Lara always made it a point to come home early, and on the rare occasions she didn't, she would always call her siblings. So, when evening rolled around and there was still no sign of her, her siblings became worried. They knew something was wrong when Jidena, who had also been trying to reach her, said her phone seemed to be out of service. Jidena's worry turned into fear. They all started searching around town, hoping to find any clue that could lead them to Lara. They contacted the police, but every effort to locate her seemed futile. The police could find no trace of her. Despair gripped her siblings and Jidena, but Jidena refused to give up. Unknown to them, Lara had been taken to a remote town and held captive in a desolate place. Someone had paid a notorious gang to abduct her, instructing them to ensure she never returned to her home. The kidnappers were told they could do whatever they wanted with her, even end her life. For days, Lara was locked in a dark room with no food and little hope. She cried, tormented by thoughts of why she was suffering so. She wondered if it had anything to do with her relationship with Jidena. Meanwhile, The kidnappers, known for their ruthlessness, were planning to end her life and sell her organs. However, when they brought her out to execute their plan, one of the gang leaders recognized her. He remembered her as the kind akara seller from Lagos who had faced so much adversity already. He knew how her mother died and how she sold akara in the streets of Lagos to raise her siblings. She was such a sweet soul, and why would anyone want to kill her, he thought. He immediately ordered his men to stop. He insisted that Lara not only be spared but also be fed and returned safely to where she had been abducted. Lara, weak and bewildered, was given a piece of bread, which she devoured hungrily, not understanding the sudden change in her fate. On the drive back, the kidnappers revealed to her that Mrs. Okafor had ordered her kidnapping, but they couldn't bring themselves to harm such a gentle soul. Lara was stunned by the big revelation. When she was finally dropped off near her home and reunited with Jidenna and her siblings, everyone was shocked but overjoyed to see her. Lara sat down with them and recounted everything that had happened. Jidenna was devastated by his mother's actions. He had known she was stern, but he hadn't imagined she could go such lengths. Distraught and resolute, Jidenna immediately informed his father, who was deeply disappointed in his wife's actions. They called the police and Mrs. Okafor was arrested, facing serious charges for orchestrating the kidnapping. Months later, with the ordeal behind them, Jidenna proposed to Lara. He told her, "You've been through so much and our love has been tested time and again. But every day, my heart reassures me that you are the one for me. I don't care what anyone else thinks. Let's face this future together." Tears streamed down Lara's cheeks as she accepted his proposal. Never had she imagined that a man like him would come her way. A man who was ready to defy his family and fight for a poor akara seller and also give her a better life. A man who was willing to give his life for her sake. With a teary but firm voice, she said yes. Their wedding was a grand affair that left many astounded. The poor akara seller marrying a handsome billionaire. It was a testament to how dramatically life can change. God had elevated Lara from nothing to something. For her, it was a dream come true, a poignant reminder of love's power to transcend all barriers, and she was going to live happily ever after with her husband and her siblings. Her uncle, who had taken all her father's belongings and left them on the streets, was now very ill. When he heard Lara's story, he cried and regretted all his actions. He had sold everything to cure himself, but it seemed no remedy was working. He could only wait in pain for death to come, as he wondered if he was facing the consequences of his actions. He knew Lara could help him, but he was too ashamed to reach out. Hey besties, thank you for watching this amazing story, and I hope you enjoyed the story. I would like you to share your lessons in the comment section so that we all can learn from you. And if you are yet to subscribe to my channel and you enjoy my story, please do not skip this video without hitting the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified whenever we post new stories. I also want to thank you for your love and your support. It's been so massive, guys. Right now, I'll have to go and see you in our next story. Bye!